This is Uncle Stu, the old man on the block, continuing my conversation with the real Nathan Daly. The topic of discussion is toxic culture. Let's hear what Nathan Daly has to say.
Where are we? We're in a state of confusion. We're in a state of no plan, no strategy, lack of knowledge, and lack of purpose. And when you are in a confused state like that, you're easily controlled, manipulated, and you're easily dismantled. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a dysfunctional community because the men are not in the great position that they need to be in order to actually make the impact that they should make.
I like the fact that you said earlier, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And what I hear echoed a lot, and it's funny because when I got introduced to a much larger audience, the topic was the older generation failed the younger generation. So it's one of those things where the echo, if you want to call it the echo chamber or conversation, and I've heard this also offline, and this wasn't even a black person that said it. You know, this was a white person that said it. They talked about the generation before failed them. They really went all the way to baby boomers, failed them. So if there was success in one generation, success in another, and then it comes down to the other two generations, how does those other two that feels the last two failed them now listen to them? And I'll give you an example. If you got a generation of younger men saying baby boomers failed us, then that means Generation X failed. So why should they hear baby boomers and Generation X if they have it in their mind they failed? As if, you know, they don't have nothing to offer, so they got to figure it out. Is that a misnomer? Is that propaganda? What is that? Because that's something that until I came online, I've never heard until I got into an online conversation. I just never grew up with blaming prior generations.
You know, the truth is that, you know, each previous generation can only do what they can do with what they had allowed to them. We know the history of Black Americans, you know, so we have to always take that in consideration when we're having these conversations. But the truth is that there are some people within these different generations who successfully were able to pass their baton through their family without any major issues. I think this is also, we consider just the human condition. This is a part of life. Everybody's not going to be a winner, right? The problem within our community that's causing disruption is the culture that we've adopted, the culture that we've allowed to be manipulated and influenced through media, through entertainment, through sports, through all these other different avenues, marketing, capitalism. We've allowed our culture to be heavily influenced and rooted around these things. Mm-hmm. And so what it's causing a lot of disruption, and the disruption is causing dysfunction. The dysfunction is having a negative impact on generations to come. What do? You know, what can you do? I think one of the challenges, the biggest challenges, is that we are in a state of lack of accountability. We don't want to accept the fact that a lot of the harm that's being committed is self-inflicted. You know, we want to blame a lot of the issues on third parties, right? Systems, not understanding that these systems are in place to make money. Right. It feels like oppression. You know, I think we don't acknowledge the power that we actually have as a group. We allow ourselves to be taken advantage of, and we don't work collectively as a group. Some people argue against that. Some people prefer, you know, we had this conversation on your channel before, right, you know, where some people are like, hey, we're not save yourself. You can't save the entire Black community. Well, unfortunately, when you operate with a selfish mindset, which I understand how difficult it is to think outside of yourself, to think outside of your own immediate family. Mm-hmm. But if you move with the mindset of we'll only care about my immediate group, then we lose a sense of collective power. And what we're saying is we are all our individual tribes, and we're not a collective unit operating, because see, essentially is everybody else knows how to become a collective force when it's
Right.
necessary, right? They know when to work together when it's necessary, and we as a group here in this country, we have not mastered that part yet. When we come together collectively is actually where our power is most strongest. And so the mindset now of every average everyday Black person, Black American, is that we move as individuals. We can't get on the same page. We can't agree on the same things. We can't agree to even disagree, right?
Right.
Because if
Right.
you even have a difference of opinion, you're shunned, you're cut out, you're told you're not Black, you're
Right.
called a sellout. So we don't even respect unique thought or difference of thought. We move with the hive mindset and believe that everybody's supposed to follow suit, or you're not good enough to be considered Black. So you have a lot of toxic teachings and toxic culture that's really been pervasive for a
Right.
very long time. So you got to figure out how to actually do away with that. When we talk about this generational problem, the issue is this country is a capitalist country.
Right.
Black people make this country a lot of money,
Right.
and so it doesn't benefit anybody for us to become any wiser, for us to become more disciplined with our money, to become more disciplined with our actions. It would cost, right? One
Right.
one one could even argue that if Black people ever were to wake up, essentially,
Right.
economically, financially, spiritually, just in a place where we accept and understand our true self-worth and our value, one would say that would really cause a economic collapse in this country and a global collapse, because that money is going to end up retracting and then coming right back into our community because we'll understand that we are actually slaving ourselves again. Essentially one could argue this is slavery 2.0, but it's a slavery, or I would say it's more of an indentured servant. And
Mm.
and this type of servitude is desired, right? It's
Right.
desired. And the people who put us in this trick bag was, very creative, and it's working. It's working, and the only way out of it is to actually let go of the things that you actually desire the most. So in order to gain everything, you essentially have to lose everything. And I think the mind won't allow people to do it. But that is the real freedom. To gain everything, you have to lose everything. And that's one thing in our community that we're not willing to do, which is make the necessary sacrifice. We simply let those things go, and we'll see an overabundance of life, money, value, success. But we're too dependent on other people to give those things to us. And that's essentially all it is at the end of the day.